Many people can't drift because they focus too much on the steering system. However, another equally important factor that is often overlooked is power control, which is related to the speed of the rear wheel rotation. In RC drift, the idea that faster is better is wrong. The correct approach is that the speed of the rear wheels must be just right. Not too fast, but also not too slow. For example, the gear ratio of my WL Toys K989 is too heavy or too fast for drifting. So, if we slightly pull the throttle, the rear wheel speed immediately spikes. And if used for drifting, this can easily cause the car to spin out. So if you've already increased the steering angle and are using a good gyro, but still keep spinning out while drifting, it might be because the gear ratio is too fast. Welcome to the KuikMix channel. In this video, we will replace the pinion gear on the WL Toys 128 with a smaller one to achieve a lighter gear ratio, making power control smoother and easier for drifting. First, we remove the gearbox and motor mount. If you're still using four-wheel drive, you'll also need to remove the front gearbox. The biggest challenge in this modification is removing the stock pinion gear. Mine is the 284131 series, which uses a brass pinion. If you're using a plastic pinion, it won't be too difficult. To make it easier, you can actually heat the pinion with a lighter, but don't do it for too long as it's not good for the motor magnets, and be careful not to let the flame touch the plastic motor mount. However, this time I tried not to heat it with fire. Instead, I pried it off with a screwdriver, then used pliers, and finally a pair of flat nose pliers. It might be easier to use bent nose pliers to remove the pinion, but I didn't have any at the moment. We need to widen the holes in the motor mount and the screw holes so they can be adjusted. You can use a file if you're patient. You can also use heated metal, and in my case I used a soldering iron to make it quick and easy. Just a heads up, if the tip of the soldering iron touches plastic, it will be difficult to use for soldering again. So after it touches plastic, clean the tip thoroughly or use an old soldering iron or tip that you don't use anymore, or just buy a cheap soldering iron. They cost about $1 online. Trim the melted plastic residue with wire cutters. For this part, it also needs to be leveled with wire cutters so it can be adjusted. Smooth it out using a file. Here are the results. For the spur gear, I'm using the 29T stock gear from the 284131. I'm using an 8T pinion gear from a Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive car. To adjust the gear tightness or gear mesh, you can use tissue paper or thin paper as a spacer. However, I don't use this method. I just visually inspect and feel the gear rotation. Make sure it's not too tight or difficult to turn, but also not too loose. Next, we install the spur gear into the gearbox. Make sure it aligns with the notch. If it's not aligned, it won't fit. Then, ensure the flat side of the shaft aligns with the notch in the gear. If it's not aligned, it won't fit. Don't force it. After that, we just need to attach it to the chassis. A quick note, make sure the pinion and gear are properly aligned. For example, in this case, I needed to push the pinion in slightly to get the alignment just right. After switching to the 8T pinion, I found it easier and smoother to drift. Even then, I set my throttle rate to a maximum of only 60 or 70%, not using the full 100%. This means that the car is still quite fast, or perhaps too fast, at least for my current skill level. If you're still using the stock pinion and your car keeps spinning out during drifts, the car might be spinning out because the rear wheels are spinning too fast. Try reducing the maximum throttle rate to 40% first. Thank you for visiting the KuikMix channel. I hope this video is helpful to someone, and see you in the next video.